Embrace a life of restful exertion to counteract a self-culture. I noticed myself becoming impatient with some of this year's newly published books, which seem to be running toward Christianity as a self-improvement project. Scanning the list from publishers, it dawned on me that there's no way I can be or do or fix all the unspoken broken that populates our world, the church, or even my own heart. It's exhausting. Psychologist Sven Brinkman calls this self-optimization fatigue. When we latch onto our faith as a self-improvement plan, there's no end to all the work that needs to be done. And worst of all, there's that temporary feeling of having arrived. Just look at me, working on my marriage. I'm sure tearing it up with my self-care routines this week. And it's not long before we fall into the satisfied rut that follows a season of concerted exertion. A theology of restful exertion. Nearly 100 years ago, Dietrich Bonhoeffer warned the church about cheap grace, and we've lined up in droves to get our theology straight on this point, which Bonhoeffer has masterfully defined. Grace is costly because it calls us to follow. It is grace because it calls us to follow Jesus Christ. It is costly because it cost a man his life, and it is grace because it gives a man the only true life. God's grace is muscular and abundant. It will support me even if I were unable to lift a finger to advance the kingdom of God. This is good news to me in absorbing the realities of Parkinson's disease. But there is a call to follow, which I am prone to turn into a do list. I'm supported in this by a culture that deifies organization and full schedules, but we don't call it idolatry. We call it efficiency, and then write a blog post or even a book about how to do it well. What, then, is our right response to God's lavish grace? Rest is our right response to grace. Psalm 116 records the psalmist's response to deliverance. God had delivered his eyes from tears, his feet from stumbling. He owed his precious life to God's great intervention, and this was his response to God's bounty. Return, O my soul, to your rest. Psalm 116:7 ESV, he probes this conclusion again in verses 12 and 13. What shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits to me? I will lift up the cup of salvation and call on the name of the Lord. Psalm 116:12-13 ESV, God does not work on a barter system where I take grace and then render to him my service as a Sunday school teacher. He does not require 3 casseroles per month for the needy. God is self-sufficient, he needs nothing, so the only acceptable response to his benefits to me is humble acceptance. Lifting up the cup of salvation to him implies that I know he is the only one capable of filling it. When I call on the name of the Lord, I admit that all my own efforts, my self-improvement projects, amount to ashes. Am I making this sound simple or easy? On the contrary, we have been enculturated to the practices and values of a self-help culture. Rest is not our default, and it's not an easy posture. I appreciated the work of my friend Lauren Sparks, who was such an unique to each other and to ourselves, that striving is useless and leads to exhaustion. Rest brings nothing to the equation and relies entirely on God's power and grace. Will you join me in this path of restful exertion?
Return unto thy rest, O my soul, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. For thou hast delivered my soul from death, mine eyes from tears, and my feet from falling. I will walk before the Lord in the land of the living. I believed, therefore have I spoken. I was greatly afflicted. I said in my haste, All men are liars. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits toward me? I will take the cup of salvation, call upon the name of the Lord.